All right, recording on this computer. Here we have a story. Ready? Story. Story. Okay. There was a Chassid of the of the Baal Shem Tov, and his name was Rav Zev Kitzis. He became a Chassid of the Magid. And in the beginning, he was not a Chassid, as was he wasn't a Chassid, as were all the Jews. There was, the Alter Rebbe started Chassidut. It was a big novelty. So all of his Chassidim, they came from people who were big geniuses and Torah scholars, and most of them came from backgrounds that were opposed to the Hasidic movement. And they became Hasidic. Anyway, one of them was Rav Zev Kitzis. Rav Zev Kitzis, he became also a follower of the Magid. So Rav Zev Kitzis, he once went to spend Shabbat with the Baal Shem Tov to see what he was made of. He heard all these stories about Baal Shem Tov, that he was not a good person, he was a good person. He was all the terrible things were said about him, wonderful things were said about him. And so he decided he would go and see for himself. And so the Hasidim, they would all sit together and they would eat together. So he went, before Shabbat, he got a good sleep. He didn't want to miss anything. And they finished praying. It was very impressive, very nice. And they sat down and they ate to the meal. And suddenly he fell asleep. He fell asleep. He was sitting there and he was listening and he fell asleep. And he fell asleep and he had a dream. And in the dream, he went up to heaven. And in heaven, he saw there was a big argument about how you're supposed to wash your hands. And one opinion said like this, one opinion said like that, and different opinions. But this is the way you're supposed to do it. Some opinions said it's not. So according to the Arizal, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, that usually his opinion is the one that's like gold. You know, his opinion is accepted, but there are different interpretations sometimes in what his opinion was. And anyway, so according to one up in the upper heavens, they said, no, the way the Arizal says you have to do it like this. Another one said, no, the Arizal says you have to do it another way. The intentions, what are you supposed to think when you wash your hands? The first time is this level, and the second time is this level. The fourth time you pour on your right hand is this level, and this, and they're arguing back and forth. And they say, let's bring the Arizal, and he'll explain it. So sure enough, they bring the Arizal, and the Arizal says that opinion is right. This opinion is right. One of the opinions is right. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was I think that the argument up in heaven was between the Baal Shem Tov and everybody else. And the Baal Shem Tov and the Arizal said that the Baal Shem Tov was right. This was the dream. This Zev Kitzis dreamed. So it's such a real dream, you know. They were talking about real topics, you know. And it says that if a person studies really hard and is really involved in the Torah, that sometimes when he's asleep, he's given secrets of the Torah. Okay, so this is Zev Kitzis, you know, unexplainably, he just fell asleep in this bizarre dream, and he was snapped out of it, and he woke up. How long was he asleep? Maybe a minute, maybe a second. Who knows how long he was asleep? So they're waiting and they're sitting, and suddenly there breaks out an argument between the Magid of Mezrich, he was one of the pupils of the Baal Shem Tov, and the Baal Shem Tov, about, you know, what should be the intention of washing your hands when you wash. And this Zev Kitzis says, oh, that was exactly what was in my dream. And the arguments are the same arguments that he heard up there. So one says the Magid says it's like this, and he brings a source from this place, and he brings a source from that place, and they started arguing about, you know, what the Arizal said and what the Arizal said, and it didn't mean that, he meant this, he meant this. Which just incidentally, in Judaism, it is very important and positive thing to argue, ask questions, argue. It's more important to accept the truth. It's not just arguing for the sake of arguing. But nevertheless, if you have a doubt, you're supposed to say what your doubt is. You have a question, you're supposed to ask you what your question is. Everything has its proper time. The teacher can say, okay, I'll answer that question. Just wait a minute. But anyway, so there they are arguing back and forth, and the pupils are just sitting and listening. And they don't know what the answer is. And the Maggid is bringing, beautiful proofs for what he's saying, and the Baal Shem Tov. So finally, the Baal Shem Tov said, I'm telling you, the way that the Arizal said is the way that I say. And if you have any doubts, ask Zev Kitzis. He'll tell you that the Baal Shem Tov, that the Arizal just spoke to him and told him. Zev Kitzis realized that somehow or other the Baal Shem Tov knew the dream that he had. And that the Arizal was telling him the secret of how to wash your hands. So now there was a triple meaning in the whole thing. Number one, the Arizal was telling the meaning. Number two, he was telling him the meaning so he could reveal it out. But even more, that the Arizal was saying something to him that the Baal Shem Tov knew that he was saying it to him. So he would realize the greatness of the Arizal, but also the greatness of the Baal Shem Tov, that he knew the dream. He knew he knew what the opinion was, and he knew what was in the dream. He said, when Zev Kitzis saw this, he said, that's it, I'm becoming a pupil of the Baal Shem Tov. And that's how he became a pupil of the Baal Shem Tov. Have a good day with Mashiach now. Thank you, everybody, for coming.